During his press conference, President Obama addressed Mitt Romney and a question about Bain Capital. Let's take a listen.
And the reason this is relevant to the campaign is because my opponent, Governor Romney, his main calling card for why he thinks he should be president is his business experience. Yeah, he's not going out there touting his experience in Massachusetts. He's saying, I'm a business guy and I know how to fix it, and this is his business. And when you're president, as opposed to the head of a private equity firm, then your job is not simply to maximize profits. Your job is to figure out how everybody in the country has a fair shot. Your job is to think about those workers who get laid off and how are we paying for their retraining. Your job is to think about how those communities can start creating new clusters so that they can attract new businesses.
I think it's a pretty good answer. I mean, look, the fact is that private equity makes up a very small percentage of our economy, and Bain Capital is a small percentage of private equity. And so what Mitt Romney says is, I was the head of a private equity firm. I know how to create jobs. I'm a businessman. It seems to me that that's an awfully weak stand to take if you're going to try to be president of the United States. And what the president was saying here is a lot more than just maximizing profits by shutting down steel companies.
Right. He said it's also to make sure that people have a fair shake. It's also to make sure that people that are laid off, they get, government support. I mean, honestly, President Obama, what have you done? He hasn't produced jobs. We have 500,000 fewer jobs in America since the day he took over.
100,000 more auto jobs.
500,000. 100,000 more auto jobs? Bob, please. The auto industry wasn't going anywhere. What he did was he spent $100 billion of taxpayer money to save,
like Mitt Romney.
to pay off some of his friends at the UAW. Very importantly, did you see the numbers today? President Obama's money fundraising versus Mitt Romney's fundraising. Mm-hmm. Mitt Romney has raised $402 million so far. President Obama's only raised $340. You know why? Because of the splintering, the splintered left that's going on. No, it's the left is getting splintered, and a lot of people who would be fundraising, who would be writing the check, going, I'm not sure he's pro-business.
I think you're right. He's probably getting private equity money from private equity people who take companies apart and lose jobs.
And they're spending a lot. I think that was newsy today, coming out of the political, economic, or the finance reports, looking at how much the Obama campaign is spending. They've got operations in 42 states, several hundred employees, which they're going to need, and Romney will get to that point. Can I just make one thing I think is important, which is that Neil King of the Wall Street Journal, who I follow on Twitter and enjoy following, made the point that during Bain's Capital, this is Bain's words, during Bain Capital's ownership, revenues grew 80% in the more than 350 companies in which they invested. That's a pretty good track record, right. I would imagine. 80% versus something like the energy programs, the green energy programs we've been investing in, which have basically flopped.
But here's the deal. Who would you rather have in the White House? Somebody who creates profit or somebody who taxes that profit? That's what we're talking about. And there's a golden rule. All you got to do is take the word private and replace it with public, and the left will like it. They don't like private equity. Public equity is much better, which is basically your money that they can spend.
Is that 80% an average of each of those 342 companies, or is that just overall?
It says grew in 80% of the more than 350 companies, so I don't know.
Okay.
You want me to split that hair?
No.
I don't represent them. I'm just saying what they sound like.
Split more hairs than a rabbit hunter.
No, it's not an average. It's probably 4 or 5 companies that did well. But go ahead.
All right. Well, we have to get to the bottom of that, I think. But overall, the message is pretty clear. That is something that's a record to be celebrated and not to something
you can't succeed in private equity if all the companies you're investing in are failing.
But the left isn't interested in competition. They're not interested. That's why they're in academia. They don't have any markers or metrics by which to prove their success.
Private equity makes their money by taking loans and putting debt onto companies and taking money out of it.
No.
That's not how it works.
Yes, it does.
No. Private equity makes money by taking a company that's faltering, restructuring the business, maybe even hiring or firing one or the other, and then making the company more profitable, and they own a part of the company. They can sell
that is not exactly done the track record of all of his companies. But let me ask you again, what percentage of the economy are we talking about?
Okay, can I just
talking about more venture
according to Private Equity Growth Capital Council, there are 8.1 million jobs created globally in 2011 because of private equity investment. Now that's global, and more than half of the money invested was in the United States. So you can call it names. But the bottom line is, if we didn't have private equity, we'd have substantially fewer jobs in America.
I liked it that Eric had an answer to that before you even asked the question.
Yes, I noticed that. We'd have substantially fewer jobs without private equity?
Yes.
How many do you think, Les?
I don't know, Bob.
Probably a smidgen. But we'd have a lot fewer rich people, that's for sure. I agree with that.
This is you, Bob.
What? Oh, are we out of here now? Gee, I didn't get a chance to talk about my Pinocchios, but I'll do that in one more thing. All right, listen, there's Greg is going to talk about one of his favorite subjects, which is Occupy Wall Street, demonstrators, anarchists, people who rape, pillage, and destroy places and beat up police. And you just don't want to miss this because it's going to be the same thing you've heard over and over again.
That's not really a
That is not nice, Bob.